Hello one, hello all, it's the most, I don't know what the fuck happened, ghost of them all, Caspa in the flesh, and it's time for a review of Metro Boomin and Future, We Still Don't Trust You. Future, legendary rapper teaming up with trap producer Metro Boomin, and this is the sequel to the first album, We Don't Trust You, which I honestly think is Future's best album yet, and yes, it has grown on me since the first time I listened to it, because on there we had the best melodies that Future could come up with, we had the best production Future's been on, and not to mention how much of a personality that this album had, as it felt like I was in this icy, futuristic glacier, and Future's just taking me through his mind as he just gives us nothing but Pluto throughout. And it's not like Future hasn't tried to give us a detour of his world before, like he did on DS2, where he basically took us on this druggy detour. But I would say on the We Don't Trust You album, we got multiple bangers and way less duds. Even if I did find the Prodigy skits annoying, it doesn't change the fact that there were bangers on that album. And it was pretty much Future at its best, and honestly his best lyrics yet, with continuously catchy hooks. And upon knowing that a sequel was in the midst, upon reviewing that album, and then finally getting my ears on the sequel, I honestly think my ears should stay off this for quite a while, because this thing is honestly a mess. Some of Future's worst singing lands on here, his worst lyrics land on here, and the god-awful This Sunday, where the choir vocals sound like they're bordering on parody, and Future's vocals are just too annoying and repetitious for words. Sip away, sip away. And the production is just so drab and boring. And there's also the grating, repetitious love bad bitches. I love good girls. I love good girls, but I love bad bitches. And not only that, but it is so touched up to a point where it's disgusting. And he sounds so high out of his mind that he can't even complete a fucking sentence. Like, I swear, the only highlights on here are Beat It, where we get this ethereal, dreary, vintage strum production with these soaring ghostly vocal samples that break into these murky synths, crispy trap drums, and the choir vocals actually pay off. And there's also the sinister synth-heavy Always My Fault, where Future brings these aggressive, throaty, MJ-like vocals. It's gonna always be my fault. And Abel's part goes off without a hitch. And the sad thing is, Abel makes appearances on this numerous times. The only problem is Future does not deliver on every track that Abel's on, but I digress. But I do love the beautiful, haunting feel Abel brings here, along with the very stern, foot down lyrics. And Show of Hand, which arrives on the second part of this album, where A$AP Rocky drops the hardest, characteristic, clever verse on here, and one of the hardest hooks here, and actually steals the show. With bars like, call up Pluto, Metro should have put me on the first one, dudes swear they bitch the baddest, I just bagged the worst one. So not only does he deliver the most hard-hitting hook here, but also the most hard-hitting verse. I mean, let's be honest here. But in terms of highlights, that's pretty much where it ends, and that's pretty much it. Because this album is mostly packed with duds, and I take no joy in saying that, as I took no joy in listening to this numerous times. Because this thing is almost an hour and a half of just letdowns. And I know Future has never been like the most introspective rapper, I get that. But there's times where I feel he could say something moving, and he just doesn't. He could create a song out of it, and he just doesn't. Like, he mentions getting high and forgetting a family member, I think his aunt's funeral, and he does seem to show regret a little bit, but it doesn't really turn into much of anything except him going back into the flex bars and this very forlorn ending and hook, and there's the unforgivable, hideous interpolation of the classic Boys to Men End of the Road. Not to mention how clunky the tribal drums are here, how cheap and squeaky the synths are, and we get these ugly chipmunk vocals that are buried away, where it sounds like Future is trying to put his best forward to keep this woman, saying he's gonna be right for her, but the execution and vocals are just so repulsive. Safe to say he did not have the listener's ears in mind. But as the album continues, you realize he is just moaning bitter nothings, especially on Mile High Memories, where he wants to sell you on the idea previously that he was willing to change and he was willing to be a better person. But all that goes out the window. He said he never loved this girl. He was lying. And if you think he was actually about to change and turn a new leaf, that is laughable. Almost as laughable as the terrible lyrics on the song and the god-awful singing. Fuck on him as long as you think about me. God, he sounds like a toxic Kermit on here. There's also tracks with other features, where Future sounds even more unintelligible and sounds like he's trying to sing to me through a tin can. And Ty Dolla $ign's vocals are so buried in the mix, he might as well not even be there. And there's also the snoozer Red Leather, where Cole and Future have a contest in who could sing the worst, while he continues his lyrical L streak with bars where he makes a failed attempt at making a romantic verse on like how he thinks he could have one woman, but he's like scared to commit. And it just leads to a plethora of cringy bars, like saying, "Oh, you put this in sensation." And I don't know how he could possibly say his similes are better, where he's likening him and Astro to the Twin Towers. And yeah, it gets worse. It gets worse. Also, we get countless times where Future delivers these sniveling, nasally vocals that sound annoying as hell, like on Love Bad Bitches that I alluded to earlier. Or All to Myself, where another classic is ruined. The Isley Brothers' Let's Lay Together is ruined. So, on this album, either he sounds completely comatose or grating beyond all measures. And there's also another side to this album, and it's, let me tell you, nothing but throwaways. With the exception of the track with A$AP Rocky, as I mentioned before. Like Nobody Know the Struggle. That just sounds like a weak version of one of the opening tracks on the last Metro Boomin Future album, where the refrain just sounds like he's trying to stay awake. No, nobody. No, nobody. And there's a song, All My Life, and not to worry, this is not a interpolation of the wonderful Casey and JoJo song, All My Life. No, he does not touch that, but what he should have touched was a pillow and blanket, because he sounds half asleep on this track. Actually, fully asleep on this track. And there's these weird, gross bars about Asian women, and throughout this album, he drops bar after bar of his infatuation with bi women and also lesbian women. I mean, bi women, okay. I mean, you could be with a bi woman because they go both ways. But then lesbian women, like, dude, they don't want you. And I didn't want to listen to this album again and again, but I had to. While there are highlights, this thing is a mess, a disappointment. And it really sounds like tracks that didn't make it onto the first one. Like, this album has no identity, it has no direction, and Future could do so much better. But it just sounds like he phoned all this in and sounds high out of his mind most of the time, or just not trying at all. I don't know if Metro was trying either, because it just sounds like this thing does not want to be, especially with the opener where it sounds like he's trying to do a Weeknd song. That sounded okay on first listen, but it doesn't compare to any of the great Weeknd songs at all. So yeah. Hopefully next time Future will come with something less bloated. But yeah. I'm feeling a 1.5 out of 5 on this album. 1.5 out of 5 Black Hearts out of 5. But hey, that's my opinion. What's yours? Did you love this album? Did you hate this album, and why? And that's it. Caspa, Got the Ghost, Metro Boomin, Future, we still don't trust you. Till we meet again.